Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And I want to welcome everybody to Holy Week 2025. Great potential coming up this week. I'm really excited about it. I want to tell you about what I got coming up with some future podcasts here. I got our good friend Alex Fiato is coming back in the studio this week, and we have a number of things to talk about. And I want to kind of review this a little bit for you so you can maybe do a little review yourself to prepare for it, or you can do it afterward. But one of the topics we're going to be talking about is the real life of Saint Joseph, as evidenced in other works, and including the mystical city of God. Now, a lot of you may know that Alex is an expert on this writing here, the mystical city of God. And so I'm going to be going to him as my expert in residence on this to ask him questions about St. Joseph and what his reality was, because a lot of people, and the Bible doesn't really talk a whole lot. So I want to get into what was St. Joseph really like, and how do we use him as a model for our own lives, whether we're male or female. It doesn't really matter. Heroic virtue is heroic virtue, and we should always call it out whenever we see it, and try to analyze how it worked in their lives and how we might be able to put a little bit of that in our pocket as we go about our lives. It's a very difficult thing to do, but I do believe that if you take it and embrace it as a part of your own existence, it just becomes easier and easier all the time, because that becomes who you are. And that's a very important distinction to think about. It's not who you want to be, it's who you are. And you determine that each and every day. So we'll be getting into the real life of St. Joseph. And we're also going to dive deeper into what I opened up the other day with the podcast, talking about the book that was written by Archbishop John Francis Knoll and released back in 1940, just before the outbreak of World War II. And it was the breakout of World War II, I think, that sort of held this book back from being discussed more in our public, because what he was talking about was what they were going through at that time. And what they ended up going through at that time with World War II was just all-encompassing. It took everybody's effort. There was no room for other discussions about things as to how we got here or why we got here. The fact of the matter was we were there, and action needed to be taken in that moment. We didn't have time for a lot of review and finger pointing and things like that. It was a time of action. It was as people want to so easily call out today, it was an existential crisis. Not some of these things today that we have where people want to call out existential crisis. No, it's not an existential crisis. It's just a bump in the road, and we need to deal with these things as we see them. So we'll be talking more about the decline of nations and what resources we have and what remedies we have to fight the moral decay that goes on. And we're going to talk more about the ramp up of these major wars that we've had in our world. And I went back to just 1830, but I'm sure that the cycle goes back even before that, back into the Middle Ages. Maybe the basis for all wars ever fought, on this earth at any time in our history, always comes from the devaluing of the opponent, trying to describe them as being less than human or less than you, and trying to devalue them and humiliate them and to say, you don't matter, so you deserve to be wiped off the face of the earth. This has gone on and on and on in cycles throughout our existence. And I just went back to 1830 and was talking about the in the United States at that time and the North American continent, the devaluing of certain classes of people, whether they be immigrants, settlers, or whatever. Just because of their heritage, they were considered to be less than human, less than valuable on the scale that people were putting together at that time. And it led to, in 1830, that devaluation, I believe, led to the Civil War here in the United States in the 1860s. And then after that, there was a subsiding of these tensions. It kind of went below the surface a little bit. It was always there. And then it raised up again at the turn of the last century, in the 1890s, going into the 19-teens. There was another ramp up of these accusations and devaluing of certain classes of people. And this was going on not only in the United States or the North American continent. It was also going on worldwide. It was happening in Europe, primarily as far as the discussion goes, but it's always been going on in the eastern continents, China and those Near East partners there. They've always had these battles going on as well, and their wars have been fought on. But as Western minds, we haven't really dealt with that area of human history. And so it's been a little bit shrouded and dismissed because it wasn't as important as the Western man history in their immediate existence. So it's all been going on, and we need to acknowledge these things because we can't fix them, we can't change it if we don't acknowledge it and realize that this has been a fact of our lives, and we need to deal with this bad part of our humanity. And it's within us to do it. Going to require some of that heroic virtue I was just talking about, but it's within us to get this done. We just have to allow ourselves to admit these things and understand them and then move forward. Trying to bring God's light into the world with our own little candles, as we say. So there's a way to move through this, but it takes an incredible amount of patience and understanding and commitment from ourselves to create that kind of love that is infectious for other people. So we can get through this. Now, that's what's coming up this week. I'm really excited about that because I want to get into how these things have moved through our generations, and they keep repeating, and we have to break these cycles. And so we're going to get there. It's just not going to be as easy as a lot of people may think it can be. You can't sign a piece of paper and it all happens. This has to be this call to purity that Our Lady is calling for out of America's children, to lead the world by the purity of their lives. And it's not necessarily, like I said, just about their sexual orientation and things like that. It's so much more. It calls on the whole body of things to be looked at in a sense of purity. Can it be done? Yes. Is it going to be easy? No. And I would say, hell no, because hell is really fighting against this. The devil with his minions, they don't want any of this to happen, and they strike out against it whenever they see it. So if anyone does voice an opinion against the troubles of the world right now, be ready for some blowback on that, and be ready to be attacked in certain ways by the evil one, because that's what he does. That's what they do. That's who they are. But we can be better than that. So along with that and the call to purity, I've had quite a number of messages come through, especially over the last several months. And everyone's got good questions, but what I would really like to do is get more questions all together so that we can answer these things possibly in one or two good podcast segments here, because my goal is to eliminate the fiction and the folklore from this narrative and put the facts back in. And so I have a certain body of facts that I know about this particular devotion and the people that have been involved in it, especially from my time going back to 2000. And so I can speak to those things, and I want to make sure that the truth is out there so that in future generations, or just in the immediate future right now, that people aren't misled and aren't going along with the wrong set of facts or understandings about what it is that happened. And I do know that there is a lot of wordplay going on from different people out there talking about this devotion, that I've heard a number of things from people that just aren't correct. And we can set the record straight on that, but I need your help. So it all starts with, what is your understanding? And since you're not here in front of me to ask, you need to let me know what your thoughts are, what your questions are, where there's blanks in your understanding of this particular devotion. Send them to me. I will try to answer them as best I can. If I can't answer it, I'll let you know. If you want me to take my best whack at it, as far as a guest goes, I'll do that too. There is some room for that in this, but there's been some bad actions that have happened in this situation, as there always is, but in any movement. But I think a lot of that was born out of misunderstanding and lack of communication between the various entities. So we can get through this particular learning hurdle, but I need your help. So send me those questions. Send them, please, to heyolaman@gmail.com. And that's the best way to make sure that I get to see it and that I can try to answer these things either directly through a return email, or I will put it out through the podcast here and try to disseminate it for anyone who watches this so that they know, so that at least there's an historical record. Because as we all know in life, things happen, and people can die by accident, or they can die by disease, or they can just die. Things happen. So I don't want to be leaving some voids in the discussion, because there is a lot of misinformation that had been printed on websites going way back to the beginning of the understanding of this devotion. I know there's some things that are close to the mark but off the mark that are on websites like Spirit Daily and things like that, and we can help fix these things. I've tried talking with the folks that run that, but they don't respond. I think they have embedded themselves too much with one particular group, and there's a lot of misunderstanding that came out of that. I don't think they did it intentionally. I think they just did it because they had a limited set of facts that were given to them and what they thought was really the truth. But there was a lot of problems with some of the people running this devotion back since its inception. They were trying to do things that maybe weren't timely. Good intentions, bad execution. So we can get through that, and we'll talk about these things. So send me what you got to heyolaman@gmail.com, and I'll try to answer those things for you. So in the meantime, have a great Holy Week. Try to spend some time in prayer each day. Just sit quietly. Try to reflect on what Jesus and the apostles were going through this week. Try to understand what was on their thinking, what was on their hearts, what were they going through together and individually. It was an amazing ratcheting up of tensions and pressures on these guys this week. So it's a great time to reflect on that and try to touch in with the humanity of what these guys were going through. So a great time to do some inner reflections on ourselves and how we can understand some of these things and portray these things in our own lives, what they were going through. I mean, I'm hoping nobody's going to hang on a cross this week. It was a terrible ordeal when Jesus had to go through it. And we're going to talk about some of those things as well. Alex has a great body of knowledge and what Jesus is going through, from his work with the Shroud of Turin. When you study that particular piece of evidence deeply and understand the implications of it and how it got to be, how we had this man, scourged and hung and killed that way, you understand a little bit more about what the process was. And there wasn't anything that was clean about it. It was dirty. It was a nasty event all the way around. It's a terrible way to die. But it's a fact. and we're going to talk about these things too. So have a great Holy Week, and in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.